Hi, it is January 18th, 2016. It is raining outside because I live in Portland, Oregon, and it rains here. And yes, I'm back in the United States. It's been about 6 months longer since I've made a video post. And maybe you're wondering, if you had subscribed to my videos a long time ago, why would I be posting now? And perhaps you're not really interested because I'm back in the United States and stories from China were much more interesting to you. Well, I would just like to say stay tuned for more because I am going to go back to Asia. Maybe China, maybe South Korea. Those are my focal points at the moment. But I'm going to talk more about that later, in later videos. What I'd like to do in this video is kind of a two-part thing. The first part, I just want to say what I've been doing for the past year, because I think I only made 2 videos from while I was living in Prague. And I mean, 2 videos don't really encapsulate what I was doing there. And then the other part of the video, I just kind of want to tell you watching, if you're interested, some of the few things that you can do to begin to explore ways of working and traveling overseas, if that's something that you'd want to do. And the future videos from here on, I think, are just going to be kind of like laying that down for you, giving you some kind of feedback on possible areas of research and things that you need to get, skill sets, and you need to get ideas of budgeting on how you can go and work and live in another country. Be that you work there for 6 months or a couple of years or maybe your whole life. I mean, it's your life. So I just want to tell you some possibilities that you can. What am I trying to say? You can do it. That's basically what I'm trying to say. Okay, so let's just start a little bit with the past year. My contract was up on August of 2014, so I left China and I went to Prague. And the reason I went to Prague is because I lived in Prague before. I lived there in 2016. I lived in a neighborhood or a district called Žižkov, and I went there and had lived with a friend, and that friend is still living in Prague because he loves Prague. And why wouldn't he love Prague? Because, in my opinion, Prague is one of the most beautiful cities in the world. I love it. It's just absolutely gorgeous. Every day you walk down the street and your breath is just taken away. It's such a gorgeous, gorgeous city. And yes, I would have stayed in Prague if I could have stayed in Prague, but I had 3 things that stopped me from staying. One, I didn't really make enough money. That's a lot of my own fault because I just wasn't hustling enough, and you gotta hustle when you're in Prague. It's just, things aren't really set up for you. You have to do things by yourself. So there's a lot of hustling, and I didn't put enough effort out. 2, because I didn't make enough money, I had some issues with my visa. Visa can be challenging in Prague. You have to do it by yourself, or you can hire someone, but that, of course, costs money. But I think I still could have pushed through. I still might have been able to make it. But there was a third, most pressing issue, and that was I needed to come back to the United States to take care of something. And for those of you who have watched my videos all on the past, all the way back in China, you know that my mom died while I was living in China, and it was a really pain. It was just most important person in my life died, imagine. And I needed to come back to the United States because I had to get the rest of her stuff and pick up her ashes and our family photos and bring them to Portland. Because I'm from California originally, and that's where my mom's stuff was. It was at my friend's house, and so I had to get it, bring it back to Portland. And then I needed to just kind of be in a place completely safe, easy, and comfortable and complacent, and to be surrounded by friends that have known me for years, and friends, honestly, that take really good care of me. And so it was, as much as I wanted to stay in Prague, coming back was probably the wisest decision that I ever made, because now I'm feeling a lot better, and I'm ready to go. And so in the next couple of months, I will be heading out again, and I'm pretty excited about that. Okay, done. Oh no, I'm not done. Actually, I wanted to tell you a couple things. So I didn't just stay in Prague the whole time. While I was in Prague, I got my TEFL certificate, and I got my TEFL certificate through a program called the Language House, which I'm going to talk about a little bit more in another video in more detail. I did 130 hours, which is what you need on your TEFL certificate. And then after that, then I started trying to find work, and I was independent contractor, which pretty much everybody from the United States has to be. And I found my own students. So I was doing private lessons, but I also worked for a school, and then I worked for a program called Talk Talk, and Talk Talk also gave me work in other Czech cities like Brno, and what is it called? Vyškovy? It's not important at the moment. And Slovakia, different cities, different places in Slovakia. And then I also did a lot of volunteer teaching, which brought me to Poland. So I pretty much spent the equivalent of a month in Poland, mostly around the Warsaw area. And I was doing conversation courses there, and that was through a program called Angloville. So the Language House, Talk Talk, and Angloville are programs that I had gone through, and in another video I'm going to talk in more detail about those programs and how they can benefit you, and what you need to do to be a part of those programs. Okay. Now I'm done talking about that, except for one final note about Prague. In the last 2 months, maybe 2.5 months, I wasn't teaching, and so I was making my money by being a tour guide, and that was really fun. It was a lot of work, only because it was so damn hot, but other than that, it was a fantastic job to have, and you can make pretty decent money, especially if you're a good tour guide. And some days I was a really good tour guide. So if you have any questions about Prague and you want to send me a message, maybe you only have a couple of days to stay there and you need some advice on not where to stay. I can't tell you anything about that, but what to see, what are the must-see landmarks. I can give you advice on that. That's what I would do every day, 2 times a day, take people around the city and go through the entire history of Prague, which is pretty it's filled with a lot of oppression and violence and a lot of really positive stories of rebellion. Anyway, so feel free to message me and I'll get back to you on that. Now I want to go into the second part of what I wanted to talk about, and that was about you watching, if you're interested in teaching overseas. Is it actually possible for you? Do you have to have a lot of money to do it? Do you have to have all these skill sets and all of this experience in order to be able to teach overseas? And I'm going to tell you, some of you know that you don't, but some of you don't know that. So I'm going to tell speaking to those of you who don't know, it's not as much as you think, not to get started. So just a really quick background. I am from a small town in Northern California. I was raised by my mother. She's a single parent household, and we were on welfare, and I was raised on welfare until I was 15 years old. At that time, my mom was able to find work that paid enough money that she was able to get off welfare and still be able to feed us and to pay for rent. And I was also old enough that she didn't have to supervise me all of the time. I could take care of myself, obviously, by that time. And so the reason I'm telling you this is that I grew up with this mentality that when you're poor, you can't do a lot of things. There's a lot of things not meant for you. Like everything is just some kind of fantasy for the rich or the upper class or the middle class. But poor people, forget it. You're stuck where you are. This is how I felt. This is what I believed. And I really didn't think I would ever get out of that town. I really thought I was gonna die there, and I'd be lucky if I don't know, I'd be lucky if I got a job at a gas station for the rest of my life. And I just didn't really think that there were many opportunities or options for me. So I didn't even fantasize about living overseas. And being a teacher, forget about it. No. Well, I didn't want to be a teacher anyway. But living overseas and working overseas definitely was not even in my dreams. Maybe in my dreams, but in those dreams I was super rich. Like I had a yacht and it took me there. Private jet. And and I didn't even think I didn't even plan to go to college. I was pretty much dropping out of school. I didn't drop out, I was failing out of school. And that's what changed my life, is that I was failing. I was failing my math classes, I think. I wasn't going to my classes. And so I got in trouble and I was sent to talk to somebody. They sent me to a counselor. And through the counselor, I was introduced to a program called Upward Bound. And Upward Bound is a program for low income and minority kids. And this program helps kids who don't have the money, and who don't have the right grades. Well, some of them have great grades, but for those of them that don't have great grades, they help them take those steps that they need to improve their grades, which requires going to school during the summertime. And they also offer grants for you to be able to go to school. They help you with everything in going to school. And if it wasn't for Upward Bound, I would never, ever have gone to college and gained this enormous student loan debt. But for me, college was important. I was the first person in my entire family, like extended family, that had ever gone to college. And so I was definitely grateful now. Looking back, I was definitely grateful for it. So that's something that's an option for some of you out there. If you are younger, if you're still in high school and you're thinking that you could never afford to go to college and the student loan just looks crazy, which it is. But just look into the Upward Bound program for low income and minority kids and see if there's some option for you for that. But the reason I'm talking about that is just because I just wanted to mention that I didn't come from money, and the idea of money, the image of money was like a wall for me, a blocking wall, this thick wall that I would never get through. And there were these things that I couldn't do. And I never have money. I still don't ever have money, but I get by, and I can still manage to get many of the things I want. Not like a private jet or anything, but who needs it really, right? But as I was saying, like college I didn't think was going to happen. And so of course I wasn't thinking about Europe. So how did I end up getting into Europe? Well, because I went to college and because I'd met a lot of people, for some kids, their parents did pay for them to be able to go on the European trip, and they would come back from Europe and then they would talk about it. And they told me, ways that you could travel without having to have a lot of money. So all I had to do was be able to get the flight there. So when I was 25, after working, I'd already graduated from college, and after working for a year, I'd saved up some money, and my friend and I decided to backpack through Europe. And I made it. We didn't always eat very much food. I definitely didn't I didn't have enough money to stay as long as I wanted. But the point is that I was able to get there. And while I was there, I went to meet a friend, and my friend was working at a company, working not for a company, but my friend was working for the U.S. military. And so this was a way to be able to live in Europe, was to work for the U.S. military. So I worked for the Armed Forces Recreation Center in Garmisch-Partenkirchen, which was in Germany. Now, I'm not going to go too much in detail because this video is getting long, but I will talk about AFRC, Armed Forces Recreation Center, in the next video when I talk about sort of options for living and working in Europe in particular. So I worked at AFRC, and that is how I was able to live in Prague the first time. And I'm not sorry, Prague, I'm sorry, live in Germany or live in Europe the first time. And once I was in Germany, then I started meeting people and finding different places in different parts of Europe where I was able to find work. And so I was there for 2 years. Now, the next time going over to overseas from the United States was the trip to China. And China, well, the place where I worked in Zhengzhou, I had a friend that had worked there. And so that was my connection. And that is going to be something really important for you. Networking. They say it in every sort of thing, like any kind of field of work that you want to be in. Jobs, schools. It's the same thing for traveling. It really is. Traveling and working abroad, networking. And I'll tell you that the person who introduced me to the job in China is somebody that I had met 16 years before in Germany, in Garmisch-Partenkirchen. And that is why, that is how I was able, 16 years prior, that is how I was able to find a job in China. And that's really, really how it works, who you know. And they don't have to be like anybody famous. They just have to have connections. You have to have connections. Be nice to everyone. Be nice to everyone, because you never know. You just never know, and you don't know who you're going to help. So in this last couple of minutes, what is it that you might need to prepare? Well, you do have to have certain things. You're going to have to get enough money for your plane ticket over. Sometimes schools will pay for it, but I'll talk about that later. And you're going to need at least a TEFL. You don't have to necessarily have a college degree. It depends on where you're going to go in the world. But you need to have at least a TEFL or a CELTA. And sometimes you don't even need that. Sometimes if you can just get over to a certain area and you meet people, you can find ways of getting jobs. And the Armed Forces Recreation Center is a good place to start. So anyway, the next video is the question. The question asks you, or for you to ask yourself, is where, if I'm going to go work somewhere, where do I want to work? Do I want to work in Europe, or do I want to work in Asia? And the reason I'm only focusing on Europe or Asia is because those are the only places that I've been. But of course, there's a whole world out there. There's South America, there's Africa, and you can even teach English in Australia and New Zealand. Not sometimes as a second language. Sometimes you can get a teaching job there. I mean, the possibilities are out there. So, got so much to tell you in the extra videos. Thanks so much for watching, and I'm going to end this because, damn it, it's 20 minutes. All right, bye.